That being said, we're going to get right into it with the biggest news, the $500 billion Stargate project. So OpenAI and the future of AI. So got an announcement post here. It's a little bit different than an announcement post. It's more of a dissection post. So let me get this straight. Stargate just announced Oracle and Larry Ellison, OpenAI, Sam Altman, Mayoshi Son, and SoftBank, $500 billion.
Crazy. I saw that. I saw that video where Massa initially, when he came to Trump right before inauguration, offering to invest 100 billion, and Trump negotiating for 200 billion, and then he's like, I got back with 500. So
yeah. What do you think of that, Mr. Trump?
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, obviously there's like scrutiny going on right now around this, like with Elon Musk's like saying they actually less than 10 billion.
Yeah.
For, I don't know the exact details of how SoftBank works, but from what my understanding is, it's the biggest, as it's considered, the vision fund, right? The biggest VC in the world, as far as I know. And how their model works is they invest not their own money, but their investors' money, and they do the regular 220 model where they take the 20% of the profit and they spend 2% of the fund's money per year to run the operations. So the scrutiny from Elon Musk and all the people saying they don't have that kind of money in their balance sheet because they're a public company. Of course they don't. But what this means is this is a new investment. And as far as I know, majority of their investment comes from Saudi Arabia, right? So just wanted to kind of clarify that part from my understanding. I mean, might have to do some fact checking here for exactly what the latest is on this, but
yeah,
they
asked
sheet,
the Microsoft CEO about Elon saying they only have 10 billion, and he said, "Well, I'm good for my 80 billion." So it is the process of
I saw that
raising and bringing that money in ultimately. But announcing a project that big with those players, I don't see it taking very long to raise.
for sure. Yeah, it's probably commitments that they got from people who invest, because like Saudi Arabia, we know like they play in trillions, you know, so they I think like Saudi itself is like investing a couple $1 trillion into AI, so I don't see why they wouldn't put $500 billion syndicate for Massa's fund, right? And but that'll be so interesting. Like what I see coming with this is like, yeah, they talked about some very inspiring stuff like cancer treatment. That's super inspiring, and hopefully that will be the effects of AI. I think, and yeah, a lot of it will go to like infrastructure, like what Zuck announced. Also, I'm sure you have that on your list, like that they're doing the 60 to 65 billion-dollar investment and data center size of Manhattan. I think he just announced that yesterday from Meta's own money.
No, I didn't see that at all.
Yeah, that's coming as well. But so a lot of it is going to go toward infrastructure and R&D. But my biggest kind of lesson from seeing how Masa and SoftBank invest has been this: when they had $100 billion, let alone 500, that was still to that date the biggest fund. You know that famous scene of like how he invested in WeWork, and like I think it was like 15-minute trip, like guide like through WeWork, and then he put $4 billion, even though he was asked for less, because he said go crazy. You have to understand why that happened, because when you have $100 billion on your hand, not your own money, you can't just sit on it. Your job is to invest that, but you only have to be right once or twice out of your 10 investments to recoup that. But you don't have unlimited time to spend that money. So you have to make big bets like that very quickly when you see that the opportunity may be right, which is why even though Masayoshi publicly said WeWork has been the worst investment he's ever made, I understand why he did that, and I actually respect his behavior, because it sounds, pun intended, absurd that he invested $4 billion in 15 minutes, right? Obviously, there's been due diligence before and after, but it actually makes sense because he has to make big bets like that. When he has $100 billion, he has to spend in a certain limited amount of time. But now imagine what's going to happen with 500 billion.
Yeah.
There's going to be another Adam Newman coming at him, convincing him, as much as he's now more experienced and burnt with this experience, there's going to be another Adam Newman of AI that's going to come to him and say, hey, we're going to do an AI-powered co-working space, or we're going to do a virtual co-working space for AI agents to work together, like some kind of absurd idea like that. And he's going to put
some
in
might say
20,
Sam Altman is the Adam Newman of AI.
perhaps, I mean, I have more faith in him, and honestly, I'm not as disappointed in Adam. That's a whole different topic of its own. I still there's a lot of things to respect in Adam. I don't think he was necessarily a bad guy. He was just a little bit delusional, and got into his own, with that much money, and he accepted that, right? It was
every founder's got to have a little bit of delusion in them, right?
For sure. I mean, it's uninformed optimism, we call it, right? That in hindsight can be seen as delusional, or as oh wow, this was visionary, right? But at the moment, it's always uninformed optimism.
Yeah. And now the markets also here in the last 12, 24 hours have been reacting, and this goes into one of the questions I have on this topic. Have you seen the discussion around DeepSeek? Are you familiar with that?
I've been seeing it. Yeah, it's the new Chinese model, right?
Yeah. So
the
question is, are we moving toward a monopolized AI ecosystem, or does this create a new space for innovation? And I feel like we got somewhat of an answer with that of DeepSeek coming out. It's fully open source. There's actually a forum on Reddit, I believe, some community forum of Facebook higher ups having a complete meltdown about how DeepSeek is taking off in the discussions on Twitter on X. So I think it's interesting. They're saying the cost is going to go to zero with this open source model being on par with Claude Sonnet and GPT's 4.0. I haven't used it myself, but
I haven't either. Yeah, but the fact that people are comparing it to GPT and Sonnet, that's impressive already, and on its own. Obviously, you got to treat anything that comes out of China with skepticism, and but I wouldn't by no means doubt the power of technology that they built. I'm sure they built an amazing technology, but do I really trust it is the question, right? Does the American consumer trust it? Which after TikTok, we probably will, right? There's we all know, even though they're a Singaporean company, that it's owned by ByteDance, which is a fully Chinese company, and in China everything is government. But without getting too political, I think this is definitely going to challenge the American companies. But I like that they're open source, because obviously OpenAI has been criticized a lot by because being closed sourced, and that Zuck is a proponent of open source. And, I think we talked about it last time a little bit, that there's a recency bias around open source versus closed source, thinking that, hey, closed source is the norm, but open source has always been a norm. Yeah. So I personally haven't tested it yet. I'm going to test it out. Honestly, there's been so many AI models that I'm just sticking to GPT lately. I've tried Perplexity a little bit. I've tried Claude, but everybody swears by Claude's LLM being better. But to me, as long as I can get what I need done with GPT, and if I think deeper integration into LLM is going to be good, but I'm looking more for vertical integration, just like what GPT is doing right now with its new operator and other stuff, right? So that's the stuff I'm more excited about, rather than a better model, because I think an incremental change in the LLM's quality isn't going to be really noticeable for what we use it for.
I agree. I've seen a lot of people talk about that as well. Towards the end, we'll get into the here and now practical applications, some of those OpenAI updates. But now I want to kind of give a perspective on what this means for some AI developers with these new breakthroughs. Now, McKay Wrigley, if you're not familiar with him, when AI development tools first came out, he was the one that went viral on Twitter, on YouTube, using the connecting the APIs to his cameras, doing some stuff that was really cutting edge at the time, a year, 6 months ago. He's been building a bunch of projects recently, but I'm going to pull up a tweet from him right now, and it says, kind of hard to go back to building B2B agents when OpenAI is building 500 billion worth of data centers with the mandate of the U.S. government to build ASI, artificial superintelligence. Suddenly, it all feels so silly. So I'm curious. I'm gonna show this.
So that one I'm not sure about, because is this coming from the fact, like, assumption that all the $500 billion going toward OpenAI? I don't think that is the case, though, isn't it?
Here's my understanding of it. The fact that he's been trying, and other developers in AI have been trying to build these B2B AI agents. When we're about to get artificial superintelligence, that is going to make those absolutely obsolete. Of where they're going from 20 to 40, ASI is going to be 20 to 2000 and be able to accomplish anything of these B2B AI agents that they're building. That's my understanding of it.
I see. That is, again, assuming that they'll build ASI, and which we yet to see how it's going to perform, right? But honestly, I think there's going to be so many ripples of, like, even when the ASI comes out, what happened to, like, I mean, the companies that are directly trying to compete with OpenAI, I think that's going to be tough for them if that happens, right? But again, I don't think it's going to be like one winner take it all as usual in the market. And if anything, this is also going to create opportunities for other startups, like what we've seen with a lot of wrappers being built on top of the OpenAI's APIs, right? So when this comes out, like, imagine an API that connects to this ASI that you can utilize to build an app like we do. You can build a website or any other tool.
So I'm curious, what advice would you give to smaller developers or founders that are feeling the tension of building smaller solutions when people are working on such large solutions?
Okay, yeah, very good question, because, like, I felt the same way when I saw all this thing. Like, is there even an opportunity for smaller guys? But now, like, I'm realizing that this actually, all of this, like, yes, OpenAI has its own consumer facing side, but they're as we know, they're being losing money on that. So it's not their main business. Their main business is still being the infrastructure and providing the APIs for developers. So if anything, all of this, I'm thinking of this as like the new technology came out, like GPS came out on mobile, right? And then what did that create? That created Uber, right? So the same thing. There's an opportunity. There's more and more opportunity for developers. I'm personally excited to one of the apps that we're gonna release this year internally in partnership with one of our clients slash partner is going to be around AI, and that's something that I know OpenAI is very unlikely that it will get into. It's like a cybersecurity training related product that we're going to be releasing, for example. And I know that it's very, very unlikely that OpenAI itself will get. I mean, it's impossible that they will cover every niche. So again, as this infrastructure gets better, as the backend technology gets better by them, this is literally just building blocks for others to build better buildings around it.
Yeah, I think I have a good old saying that sums it up well, and that's a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. This is a rising tide.
Yep, beautiful. All right, rolling into our next topic here. This one's titled "Building Apps That Solve Real Problems." And this is inspired from a Greg Eisenberg post. Are you familiar with him?
Yep, very much. By the way, you're still sharing your screen on the last.
Yep. We're over here now. Yep. Viral App Playbook by Blake Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
He's an AI app founder.
Oh yeah, that's the guy that I think built co-founded Cal AI, I believe.
Yes, I believe so. So I'm just going to leave this up here. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, and it is a little more, on the technical side of the tool structure to build it out. Just kind of want to get your general take on this.
For sure. So let's look through this. The idea, right? Don't build social app. I agree with that so much. I tell that to all of our clients all the time. I mean, we have clients that build social apps, but it's extremely hard unless you're Nikita Bear. Yeah, so read our blog and become him. But if you're not, solve big problem in a small way. Interesting. Use social media for product inspiration, validation. Ideas don't come fully formed. So this first part, I very much agree. Yes, you can validate your ideas very cheaply, very easily, without even building the product, by validating on social media. I would add to this that don't just validate by getting written feedback in comments. Try to validate it by a real wait list that you're going to put up on like a one-page website, and collect like a $1 deposit or something for people who really want to sign up for this. That's an idea validation. So not simple social media post. That's one. But even that is a good start if you just do that too. Better ways to take it a step further with a landing page. Another one is design, use Figma, minimize the cognitive load, make your app usable by both 7-year-olds and 70-year-olds. That one is a little bit harder. So
I like that one.
Yes, I do as well, but I'm thinking from a perspective of a not experienced person. Everybody says, oh, there's Figma, it's easy to use. It's not extremely easy to use. There's a lot of templates, yes, but there is a learning curve. And so this one is a little bit, I'm not sure, but maybe you can use tools like Galileo AI to generate some Figma designs from prompts. So that one's like I'm 50-50 on. And development wise, yes, expect AI to teach you. If you have the patience, yeah, I think you can build a good MVP using Replit and OpenAI's, LLMs or other tools right now. It allows you to do that. I would add to this again, going back to my landing page example. Many people don't realize that an MVP does not have to be an app or the actual product. MVP's goal is to validate the idea, right? So if your goal is to validate the idea, you don't have to really design or develop every single time. Like Dropbox's MVP was a simple landing page with a video demo and a wait list. And that was their validation MVP. That's all, so you don't really always need this. That's why I would be like, maybe you don't have to, but it depends on the product, right? There are some products that you need to build to some extent. So it's very individual as well there. Marketing wise, low capital UGC, yes, establishing niche influencers. This one is also like, so yeah, I'm familiar with this playbook of like small UGC creators and micro influencers, they call. From Blake's own words, I've watched this video. It's very time consuming to do this. But if you have nothing else but time on your hands, if you're starting out, you can do that. But it's extremely time consuming to find the right influencers, to convince them to post. And then you have to pay them, obviously. So if you need to have some capital for this part. Yeah. So, but yeah, if you're in it to make it happen and you have the time, you should definitely follow this. This is a working playbook for sure. It's just not extremely scalable, but it's a very good start.
So I would say the question for you is, which part resonates with your experiences the most?
To me, so I haven't used this playbook, right? For me, it's always been more of a longer term game where I launch something and then wait for SEO to pick up and all of this, right? So this actually does resonate with me wholly, because this is still faster than my traditional way of like launching and doing SEO or paid ads, right? So I would say like validating on social actually resonates more than any other part, because I've done that. I always post my top ideas that I get excited about on social, right? Like when I recently posted an idea that I want to do like a firm for B2B. We talked about it. I ran across a couple of different existing solutions that I wasn't able to find on social media that people posted, including Enhancify, which we're now using for our own business.
Yep.
Right. So that part probably resonates the most with me. Validating on social, such a great tool. If you have even a small audience, people love those posts when you post business ideas. People usually engage really well. Those are my top performing posts always. So that part is probably going to save a ton of founders a ton of time. You know why people don't use that, by the way, Andrew? We know that most of our clients, they freak out about NDA and confidentiality. So people think like, oh, I don't want to like tell my idea to the world. That's a whole different topic of its own that we should make a blog on, is like, do not freak out. Like nobody's really going to steal your idea. It's very low chance that somebody will steal your idea. And there's more benefits to validating your idea and getting feedback than there's a risk of somebody stealing your idea.
That's a great topic. The cost benefit, risk and rewards of building in public versus not building in public.
For sure. I think the benefits of building in public is, even before building, like validating in public is just so valuable in and of itself. But building as well, yeah, I'm still like kind of like afraid to build in public because I'm not, I still freak out about like the, opening everything up.
Yeah.
But I'm in the mindset of like, I know this is more beneficial.
Yeah. There's always certain things that probably are better kept, confidential. And that's kind of, I think, where the focus should be on is, knowing how, when you build in public, to, give value without giving away your proprietary value, right?
100%, 100%. Yep. So yeah, I love everything that's mentioned here. Blake is a great founder, honestly, very inspiring. We should invite him to this podcast actually to participate and share his story, because they got to very $1 million a month. I mean, that's incredible. Honestly, that's incredible for an app.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, rolling into the next topic here, another somewhat emerging trend over the last few years, exploring health apps and niche markets. So before I switch over to one of the two tweets we're going to discuss here, I want to ask, what's your thoughts on health apps as a growing yet challenging niche?
So obviously, even before we get into growth, the health market is huge, right? Multi-trillion-dollar market, definitely growing. As far as challenges, yeah, I mean, the very first one is regulations in the US. It's like HIPAA compliance and having to like encrypt everything, having to like jump around hoops like that to just be able to even launch is very difficult, because patient data, especially if you're trying to launch an app, Apple gives you a hard time with regular users' data. Like recently we got rejected on App Store for one of our clients' projects because we were mandating a sign up before the person goes on the app. They're like, why are you collecting people's data before people check out the app? And we had to like make a case for why. Now, if you do that with a healthcare app, that's even worse. That's even harder. You're getting challenges from Apple and from like the healthcare regulations. So I'm not super keen on like building healthcare applications myself, right? But Andrew Wilkinson here is saying, is there a good app that analyzes Apple Health data and drops correlations and conclusions? Okay, I'm Daisy.
Yeah, I wanted to include this one because it's funny. We had another one of his in the last couple of weeks, and our kind of general response was, "Can't GPT already do this?" And I think this one, that was my first response, even more of GPT just being able to take this data and draw correlations and conclusions.
It can, yeah, given there's a right prompt, right? Given that there's a doctor that gives the right prompt on how to actually do that. Comes down to, again, like, GPT's infrastructure. You can build so much stuff around it. Like,
Yeah.
what the previous example of Blake, for context, that was Cal AI, the app that's making $1 million a month. That's simply a calorie estimator when you take a picture, which, by the way, it is not super accurate.
Yeah.
But people will use it.
You don't know what ingredients, what type of bun that is, what type of burger.
Like what's the dressing and all that, but
yeah.
People buy it. It's still like it's a good guesstimate. But see what they built on top of that, right? So, I mean, this is absolutely another opportunity here as well. I think it's still, GPT wrappers are still like so underutilized. It's so like there's so much stuff.
Back to the building blocks thing that you were saying. There's always a way to niche down and drill down further than just what GPT can put out.
Yeah, it's the prompt that makes it valuable. It's the combination of multi-prompt systems. Sometimes you combine multiple LLMs. Sometimes you use multiple AI tools for text to speech, speech to text, text to text sometimes, right? So it's I think combining those is a great idea. But now coming back to the topic of healthcare here, yeah, I think this is an opportunity. Again, I would want to see like what's an example of like a conclusion that you'd be able to draw. Like, what is it? Like, is that make a suggestion for your health? Like, what? That is TBD. But I'm also bullish on this. Why? Because I got extremely disappointed in the iOS update with AI. It's really underutilizing all of the data that Apple has on our devices. And what it's doing now with it is like Apple itself could have made this a feature, but as we know, they always lag behind.
Yeah.
And there are so many apps on App Store that simply take existing apps that are pre-built on your phone, like a Notes app, and they make it 10x better. So, and then the power users still migrate there. Now, the caveat there is most users don't. So, like most users still remain, for example, on the Apple's Notes app is the most popular Notes app in the world. But there are apps that make millions of dollars for power users, making the Notes app better. So same thing here. Take the Apple Health, make it 10x better, use AI, do a better UI UX. Apple's own team is never going to be a startup that all they do is do that one thing, because a mail app on App Store barely got updated. It's way worse than Superhuman, right? Superhuman is used by power users, makes millions of dollars, way better than Apple's own.
Yep.
Telegram, way better than iMessage. For every app that Apple has installed, I think that's an opportunity if there's anything that's not been touched. And I think Apple Health is one of them. Yeah, that's not been touched, for sure.
Yeah. Fair point. Fair point. And another health-related post from our guy Nikita Bear. Death Clock, an AI-powered longevity app. Now, I've always find this interesting with what Brian Johnson has done in the last year or two with trying to reverse engineer and spend millions of dollars on his health. If you people wonder where he got his wealth from, he was one of the original founders of Braintree. Braintree was bought by PayPal, integrated heavily with eBay early on. I was a power user of eBay at the time. Braintree was still involved there. But anyways, the longevity space has been taking off entirely more than I expected. And this is a company, Death Clock, that Nikita has been an advisor for.
Wow, this guy's been an advisor for so many different companies. He's like crushing it.
Yeah.
By the way, I love his app that we discussed last time. That I started using it since you showed it to me. It's brilliant in terms of how it grows users.
You started using it. You told us last time that the only reason that would be used for is
No, and I say started using as in like I checked it out. Don't want to shoot myself in the foot here. Good catch here, No, not for those reasons. We have very private communication and documentation that we need to send to our clients. Let's say that. Just leave it at that.
So on his point, health apps are notoriously difficult to grow. What would you say helps these apps stand out in such a saturated competitive market?
So I think, yeah, I mean, how Nikita is adding these social features here, and the fact that he's able to do that, that's definitely a big differentiator, right? Unique concept that plays on, I think, people's fears, and like death is definitely everybody's fear, right? Is a huge factor here. Like, as far as I understand, what does this app do? Like, death, does it like help you, give you advice on like living longer?
Yes. So essentially, it's your AI assistant, Brian Johnson.
Ah, that's interesting. So, I mean, I would try it out. I'm not sure. I have to actually get my hands on this product, but
Yeah.
concept is interesting. I'd be curious how they nailed the social parts here. The name definitely is a brilliant. Death Clock is very catchy, very memorable. These guys really nail names. Honestly, Explode was a great name too.
The logo there with the DC and then the glass.
Oh, that's what the play is on. Wow, I love this.
Yeah.
See, that's when like you really appreciate good logos, when people do something like this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check this app out. I'm gonna give my opinion by next episode on this as well.
Yes. I was gonna say we should start giving ourselves homework to test out these apps that
Yes,
we've gone through on here.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna be downloading them right away, like I did just now with Death Clock. This looks really interesting. The design is really killer. Wow, what insights expect that from expected? Oh, UCLA, Stanford, Berkeley, they're name dropping. This is really cool. The design is amazing. Honestly, so much to learn from these guys. And you know what's really interesting is, I don't know if Nikita is still doing that, but he's available on intro to talk to, right? You can like invite him if you have an interesting concept to be an advisor in your company. It's incredible.
Yeah, I believe he's got a nice little price tag on him.
Yeah,
If I can see it without logging in here.
yeah, I think it was like a couple $1,000 per call. But if you have a budget like some of our clients do to build that an app for $50,000, $100,000, I mean, you should definitely have a Nikita budget. You know, I think if you're building like a social app, especially.
24,000 a month for building a viral app one-on-one.
Oh no way! Wow, that is a lot more than I thought. Okay.
Unlimited chat and 190-minute call.
Wow, wow. This is, for context, mine is like $9.99 a month on intro, but yeah, this guy. But dude, if you're making like, if he's gonna help you make $1 million a month, I think it's worth it. Honestly, you know, this is for context. Like, we charge around this or sometimes even less to build an app for you,
Yeah.
like from A to Z, idea to launch to per month. I mean, right? So this is like incredible that he's able to do this for per call. But I mean, the value, again, the value-based pricing, right? This is not like time-based pricing. A lot of people can confuse like, oh, it's just 90 minutes, you're charging like that. No, it's not an hourly rate. This is a value-based rate, and I think the value is definitely there. This is cool. I admire this person. Honestly, we one day we'll interview him as well on this podcast.
One day, absolutely. With that being said, we're going to roll into our last topic here, the one Sardor's been so excited about. Nothing crazy to see here on the screen, but OpenAI dropped operators and agents. Give it to us in layman's terms what this means.
Yeah, so this is their first kind of a vertical expansion into going beyond LLMs, right? Into now building their agent. I like that they're calling it an operator, because agent is such a beaten up term these days, right? But what it does in a nutshell is you can now give it a task, and it will launch a virtual computer in the cloud, and it will perform that task based on your prompt, right? So it's not just spitting out text, but it's actually virtually controlling a computer. I could actually do a quick screen share and show this. I think it'll be a real nice review, and we should definitely, just raw version, honestly, let's post this video today, because this is so time sensitive of what happened this week, everything that we're discussing, especially the operator, because look at this. This is, I bought this for $200 for context while watching the first demo. This is $200 a month. I'm not going to probably continue my subscription unless they add a lot more things. It's interesting how they have local services that caught my attention the most, because obviously we are the ones that provide services, and especially local services. We provide local SEO services, and we do that for ourselves as well. For context, we are currently rated in average #2 in Miami, you know, for our local SEO on the Google Maps, right? So this was super interesting to me. It's interesting that they integrated with Thumbtack here, because this kind of reminds me of like the App Store that they launched, where you already kind of had this ability, except this is now slower, right? But let's you know, pick one of their prompts that are selected here. Find a locksmith to rekey all my logs. That's a common request. Okay, I would usually do this myself, but let's say I want to now be able to click on this and go get a coffee, right? And when I come back, the idea is that this will be done for me. Maybe even next step is like they'll know my address and actually get this all done A to Z as if this was my virtual assistant, right? So the idea is that eventual goal is to make this into an employee, but right now it's like one step at a time, launching a virtual machine. Ironically, they're launching a Chrome browser here, as we can see, given that OpenAI is owned by Microsoft, not Edge browser. That's interesting. As you can see here, the AI is now doing using Thumbtack and the cloud computer, searching as if a human would do, right? Locksmith. This is not my zip code, by the way, so this is interesting. But yeah, this is going to take a while, so I'm not gonna sit here and wait because I've already tried this. But I honestly did not find it super valuable because it's, as you can see, it's very slow and it doesn't have context. It's not logged into my accounts. It's not controlling my computer. That's what I was kind of like borderline disappointed in, is that this is not controlling my computer. It's doing its own computer, right? Because if it did mine, then it would be logged into my account.
Claude has launched that, right? Controlling.
Yes, but that was for developers. They only launched the API. They don't have the consumer part.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but yeah, theirs was, the idea was like, yeah, it's going to control your computer, not its own. I think they're starting safe here. This is a good MVP. If you've seen the demo was so laid back and simple. Them just sitting on the table. I think they just literally rolled it out and they're like, let's just share this with with the world, like without fancy demos and everything. So this is definitely a good MVP, but nowhere near where it will be, I think, by the end of this year.
Yeah, and I remember Sam tweeted about that before they launched it. They said, "Look, scale back your expectations a little bit. You know, this
You
is
did say that?
step a mini." Yeah.
Yeah. So I like this approach that they're rolling something that's ready one step at a time and then just improving it incrementally. End of this year, obviously, where it's going to be, I'd be very surprised if it's not, is that it's going to get much quicker and it's going to actually be able to do a lot of jobs. I think it's going to be voice controlled, where now I do a lot of things with voice. I should be able to just say to GPT, like, hey, get this done, get that done, type of thing. That's, I think, end of this year.
Yeah, it's always interesting seeing how everybody talks about the different timelines of what's going to come when. It's all going to accelerate quicker and quicker, but who knows?
100% no. Seeing how OpenAI has been moving, look, in 3 years, it's gotten here where I have every day at least 5-minute chats and voice with GPT to learn something new. It's become a habit to actually, while I'm driving, to talk to GPT via voice. I mean, that's very quick if you think about it. And I've posted a prediction on X that I think they're, in the next few years, they're going to roll out their own hardware as well and their own OS, trying to compete with Apple and Android.
Yeah.
Because we spoke about it. She asked me what my preferred browser, alternative browser is. If you look at this now, Andrew, this was literally a browser. They're using Chrome, but this is a super powered, supercharged browser, if you think about it.
Yeah, I can imagine how much faster it'll be if they just have their own browser instead of using Chrome.
Oh yeah, which is obviously coming.
Yeah,
for sure. Super exciting stuff.
All right. Well, that's all we had for you today. Take some time to digest that. We'll test it.